Hi, it's Tim with RAD Adventure here, and I thought I'd do a breakdown of my hiking pack today. I just finished hiking last week the Timberline Trail in Mount Hood, and after the hike I realized there's so much that goes into the planning and preparing for the hike. If you're just getting into hiking, there's a lot of things, as you can see, spread out here. A lot of things you might not consider, and so I thought I'd do a video just to show how things get packed, what things you should consider. I'll post a list here of the things that I wrote down years ago. This list is about 8 years old. But before I did my first really big hike for, more than just one overnight, I wrote down some things that I wanted to make sure that I considered. And some of those things are, obviously your tent, your sleeping bag, having a sleeping pad, but also, food. There's a lot goes into it. Clothing. How are you going to get water? If water's available, are you going to be able to carry it? Or are you going to have to retrieve it along the way and use a filter system? What are you going to put it into? Your clean water versus your dirty water. And so I'll go through these things and break that down for you and give you some tips on some of the things that I feel are valuable on a multi-day hike. Obviously, the essentials are always going to be valuable, having a tent and a sleeping bag, but the things that can be very valuable to me. I mean, everybody has things that are more important to them. But I could tell you, I'm going to give you an example, and I'll pick this out of the group. This little bag right here are pre-cut strips of moleskin. For me, one of the most valuable things you can bring with you. You have blisters on your feet, that could end the hike really quick. Or, as in the case of like the Timberline Trail around Mount Hood, you don't have an exit for many, many miles. So it can make the day very miserable, or make the whole trip very miserable. So something like that, and I pre-cut them so that I don't have to worry about having scissors while I'm out on a hike. But something like that is really important. Before I get into the details of these things, I'm going to point out in my pack, there's obviously, most of your backpacks are going to have similar compartments, okay? You're going to have a lower compartment area, which is very common where a sleeping bag will fit. And again, some people choose to arrange these things differently and how they want to carry the weight. There's a lower compartment, an outer compartment, you'll see here, and then there's an inner compartment which is accessible when you release the upper little top over here. There's the large main inner compartment, okay? And that's where the majority of your bulk items, like your backpack and your water boiler, and depending on how you pack, other things go in, your clothing, your food, those kind of things, okay? There's a lot of things that go into packing. There's a few zippered areas here in the upper compartments. I'll refer to these as the upper compartments. There's one on the back here as well. There's side compartments. These are very handy. And then you have, like this pack, it has 2 compartments for containers, such as your bottled water. And again, it all depends on how you want to pack things. It's generally better to carry the heavier weight lower in the pack. Now, there are adjustments that can be made on most of your hiking backpacks, and this area here is where you can shift the back length adjustment from smaller to larger, and that will make a tremendous difference actually in where you're carrying that weight on your back. That way you're not, you know, carrying the backpack behind your rear end, but you're not carrying it way up on your shoulder blades. You've got to work with that a little bit and get it to where it fits you well and you're comfortable. But remember, you know, try to keep that weight lower, heavier weight lower in the pack. You don't want a lot of heavy weight real high up on your back while you're hiking. Okay, you'll see there's several connections here for clips. This is the connection that goes around your waist. Generally speaking, when you go to put the pack on, it's good to try to have these shoulder straps a little bit loose here, and that way you have some slack to get the pack on. And once you put the pack on, you can pull these straps down tight. Everybody will have their own little routine on what the sequence should be. I typically get the waist clipped in first, and then I pull the shoulder straps, and then I'll clip this one across the chest area. Okay. Everybody, you know, may have a preference on how they do that, but you'll see some of these at the lower area as well. A lot of times these upper shoulder area ones don't really come loose. You can have them stay in the same position throughout most of your hike. These lower shoulder ones, as you're hiking, they will slowly loosen up. So as you're hiking and you find the pack is sitting kind of low, you may want to adjust those or check them along your hike. And sometimes you can shift the weight of the pack upward on your back a little bit, or lean forward, shift the weight up, and then pull on these to tighten them down. Okay, I'll go through what I use and how I pack. Now, the first thing I'll do, since it's in the lower area, is here's a sleeping bag and here's a sleeping pad. Now, you know, again, I'm not recommending any brand you see here. You know, I actually slept 2 nights on the ground because this pad actually failed during the hike on my first night. So I had a jacket folded up in the inner compartment I used it for some cushion. I really need to look at lighter weight options if you're going to go to do a long hike. Lynx 1 by Alps Mountaineering, great tent for a single person tent, fantastic, but it's not the lightest tent. Okay, and so there's trade-offs there for comfort and for weight. You know, this one here, the Fandango, it has a sleeping bag. It's comfortable. It has like a fleece lining on the inside, but again, it's not the lightest sleeping bag either. So first thing I'll do is go to the sleeping bag. This sleeping bag packs into the lower compartment. Okay. Now, what I do is, since I mentioned keeping the weight down low, here is a hammer that I pack. And these are galvanized nails. Now, when you get a tent, it's going to come with these very thin, like aluminum type of tent stakes. I would recommend going to some place like REI and getting the real durable, lightweight, invest in them, okay? Because these are probably 2 pounds of spikes. So what I did on the Timberline Trail is I have 2 of these inside of the Lynx mountaineering tent. I have 2. The trade-off, the 4 corners of the rectangle, the rain fly that goes over the main part of the tent clips to those 4 corners. I didn't stake the 4 corners down. I did stake the center and the rear part of the rain fly because it has a a little entry space area. And so I took 2, but to limit the weight, I left the other 4 behind, okay? But I'm gonna pack them in my bag because that's usually how I'm carrying them. As far as a hammer, you know, if you're really going on a multi-day hike, in most cases, I would say probably greater than 90% of the time, you're gonna be able to find a rock to hammer a spike in. Now, if you have those little flimsy standard stakes, you probably gonna either bust a finger or you're going to bend the aluminum stake that it comes with. I don't even know if it's aluminum. It's probably galvanized steel. They're pretty cheap and they bend real easy. I didn't bring this hammer or these spikes on the Timberline Trail hike because I have one that I received from my wife, and it has a multi-tool with a knife and some other things in here. So I'll pack these in, and this is just how I pack them because I put these heavier things down at the bottom of my pack. Okay, and I'll secure that lower compartment and clip this in after. All right, and that's the first step. Okay. The next step for me is the tent. I'll always put the tent in first. As I mentioned, this is a Lynx 1 from Alps Mountaineering, and fantastic tent, but it's not a lightweight tent, okay? And I'm not going to go through how to set up a tent today, but I'm just mainly going about how to pack your gear and what to consider, okay? So my tent will go in first on one side, okay? And the next thing I'll do is down in the bottom, either vertically or horizontally, depending on how much stuff I have beyond just this, because I have the water boiler over here that's going to go in vertically. I don't want to put that horizontally. And so sometimes I can put my sleeping pad and then the water boiler, and then you'll see you'll have like food and clothing, and I may have the bag of water to put in here as well. When I say the bag of water, I mean the collection bag of unclean water, unfiltered water. So the next thing I'll do is I'll go down and show you the water boiler. This to me, again, this is a bigger water boiler. It's a 1 liter. So unfortunately, my pack weight was over 30 pounds on the Timberline Trail, which is a heavy pack weight. You want to try and get your pack weight without carrying water below 20 pounds. As close to 17 as you can get it, the better, okay? I read some statistics on people that do long distance hikes like the Pacific Crest Trail, and of all the people that did not finish the Pacific Crest Trail that started and attempted it, I'm not going to quote exact numbers, but it was a very high percentage, like 85 to 90% that didn't finish had a pack weight over 20 pounds, okay? And so that's the number one thing. Try to get your pack weight down. I didn't do a great job of getting my pack weight down on the Timberline Trail hike. I didn't take some of the things you see here, like the hatchet, the extra hammer, the spikes. Some of those things I did not take, but I did have enough in my gear, the type of tent, the type of sleeping bag, you know, the oversized water boiler. But you'll see here is a fire maple, and real simply put, you take the cap off here and it connects. Your little flame burner connects there. This has a igniter on it, so once it's connected, you have a valve here, and you lightly open the valve, you start it, put your water in your container, and then you connect your container here, and there's a lid, and it pretty quickly boils your water. With that, you can do a tremendous amount of things like cook your food, make coffee or tea, and there's a lot of things you can do, okay? So I wouldn't travel without some way to heat water, because that's my preference. I prefer to have a tea in the morning. Other people don't mind cold coffee. So if you're really trying to get a lightweight pack, you might consider not carrying a water boiler. Now, this one obviously is pretty large. So you'll see here, I have a Sawyer water filter system, and I've been real happy with it. I know there's some other brands that maybe have a little bit better system. Years ago, Sawyer didn't have this type of large opening water collection, and one of the other fancier brands did. I think Sawyer was smart to switch over to that style. All right, so let me put this in next to the sleeping pad. You'll start to see how things are filling up in there pretty quick. I've still got room in there, but you'll see how it fills up. Okay, and so here's a system. You have a latch here you can hook to anything, a tall tree, a branch, anything like that. But one side opens up here for you to collect water and fill it, and the other end has a smaller connection, the same as a soda bottle or plastic 1 liter soda container. And that connection allows you to connect the water filter. And then once you have the water filter connected to the bag, you have the bag up high hanging with water and the filter down low filling up your container. So any way you can hang this up high elevated with the water is a plus, okay? And that way I can put pressure on this when it's all connected and get the water flow started well. And then once the water flow's going, it goes a little slow if you're not putting pressure on it, but I've got time, and usually I'm setting up a 10 or something. And actually the water boiler, I'll usually filter into that because it's a big opening. I'm gonna pack this into here, which when it's full of water, this is where I put it. There's different water filter systems out there. What you prefer to use is your preference. I keep the water filter on the outer compartment here, mainly because I am going to access it daily and frequently. And I try to keep down low in the inner compartment area things that I'm not going to need until I get to camp and set up, as much as possible. On the top area, I'll have change of clothes, I'll have some food, a food pack of things in there as well. Okay, you'll see here, obviously you need some wipes. I bring bath wipes. The crocodile wipes are really great because their size and durability. But obviously you'll want to take some toiletry items. You can use a Ziploc bag and roll up some TP, pack it in a Ziploc bag, bring some flush wipes, whatever is your preference there, but the bath wipes are definitely a plus. I also pack those in behind the water filter, and that's why using a Ziploc bag is a big plus. I use a 1 liter bottle to filter water into as well to carry. That's so I have clean water accessible on the hike. Now what some people do is, this is just a standard like sparkling water, flavored sparkling water bottle. What the bottle that's, I think, shape and packs well, at least for my tent, the Smart Water bottle. That bottle works really well. I think it's 1 quart, but it works really well because it's a little taller than this, but it's also a little narrower than this. So it's easy to pack in and out of your pack while you're hiking without stopping to take your bag off. Okay. You'll see here, I use this container and it folds open. There's a nice little container here. You've got a fork and a spoon option there on the inside. And one of the benefits of this for me is I can pre-pack like breakfast oatmeal in small Ziploc baggies and pack them in here. I'll pack protein bars in here, or Pop-Tarts, you know, whatever, you know, the Pop-Tarts won't get broken while you pack them in. So if anything else, I can put boiling water in here with oatmeal and seal this up, the instant oatmeal. And I'll pre-make mine with like chia seeds or pumpkin seeds or pecans, whatever, and I'll make my little mix into Ziploc bags and I'll pack them into this container. And you know, think about it, you probably only need 2 or 3 depending on the hike you're going on, but it's really good container. It stays closed, it keeps things protected like the Pop-Tarts, or if you have crackers, it can help keep them from being all broken. And then it packs really well into your bag. I don't usually carry a heavyweight water bottle like this. This is about 1 quart. I do like to carry, and some people don't, I do like to carry one of these insulated bottles, mainly because I like to have black tea in the morning, and this keeps it hot. And so I'll have some tea in the morning with whatever I'm eating, oatmeal or Pop-Tarts or whatever it may be. And it packs well in the bag, but it does add weight. So remember that. Any of these kind of containers, metallized containers, you know, there's a sacrifice. If you want to keep something warm, you're going to have extra weight in your pack, okay? The next thing I'll get down to is some of the, we're talking about, you know, water, packing food items. I like to bring hydration packs, and you'll see on the left. This is also vitamin C, and I just use a Ziploc bag, but you'll see I have tea bags in here as well. And so what I can do is pack my hydration packs, tea, instant coffee, vitamin C. I definitely would recommend, you know, even if you don't bring vitamin C, bring hydration packs, because if you're going on a long hike, sometimes it can get real hot, it can drain your energy. You're typically going to be walking a long time, carrying a lot of weight on your back, which is not something we do every day. So invest in these. You know, I've heard of everything from, you know, REI has little small, they're like, I don't want to say chocolates, but they're like little coffee pucks, and they're like a half a cup or a cup of coffee equivalent, you know, in caffeine. And so whatever your thing is, you know, bring something to get yourself some energy. And these pack real well in the top of the bag. I usually keep them in the accessible area here on the outer part, so I don't have to open that all the time. Another thing that I keep, as I mentioned, is moleskin, and I like to keep that on the outer part as well and have that as accessible. Now, hot hand warmers, you know, these are optional, but on the time of the year, it's good to have, I think, just as an emergency. If it's freezing overnight, I'll put these in this secondary upper compartment that I might not access frequently without having to flip the lid open, but it's available. Some sort of pain pills, you know, these are things that you may sprain an ankle, someone with you might get hurt, okay? At a minimum, I think if you're hiking, you know, you're gonna smell, but you know, I try to bring toothbrush, toothpaste, nail clippers, very important. I've had a few times where those were real important. My toes were rubbing on the inside of my shoe the wrong way. Having a pair of nail clippers was real essential because I was able to clip that nail well and have it stop rubbing. Bring some deodorant, and at a minimum, you know, some pain pills, deodorant, toothbrush. I also keep those things on that inner area and make sure that they're accessible. So this is a bag that I like to use. It's a lined bag. I like to use this for my beef jerky, and I'll put a picture here of an example. Kind of things I put in here, MREs or dehydrated foods. I'll put beef jerky, mixed nuts. The tuna pouches are really good. They have flavored pouches of tuna. They're really good protein, good for lunch. But a nice, something like this is a durable bag. It's really good to have so that you can pack your food items in. Another optional bag, and I pack, this is just an electronics bag. You might not think too much about it, but when it's cold overnight, batteries drain very quickly. And so, not a bad idea. This is a lined bag, and you put your phone or whatever camera things with a battery, and just keeping them out of the cold helps them from losing their battery life quickly. I have a little compartment along the back side of the pack here that this fits down in the back side area. I have some walking sticks here. I don't always take these with me, but some of these, they typically will come with some extra fitments for the bottom, depending on the terrain, whether it's snow, sandy, dirt, or just general hard ground and rock. You could decide which of those you want to carry. Now, I took these out of my pack on the Timberline hike because I didn't take the walking sticks with me, okay? And that's your preference. You decide what works best for you. But when I do take the walking stick, I usually have this down at the bottom of the outer compartment, and mainly that's so that I can get access to it if I need to make a change. I don't typically change it during a hike. But now I'll break it down to the last items that I put in the outer compartments here on the sides. Okay, depending on what your preference is, I'll usually carry a pocket knife, and I'll carry that on my waist. Sometimes you're out in the wilderness. Probably the biggest threat is, a mountain lion or something like that. I'm not saying that you're gonna, win a battle with a mountain lion with a pocket knife, but it makes me feel better about having it rather than having nothing, okay? The other thing is, you have a small hatchet like this, and if you're gonna try to burn some wood, and this is like a little, I think, magnesium type of little post where you can chisel off and then use a lighter to get a fire started, okay? So either way, I keep lighter to start the water boiler. I keep this with me, as I mentioned. You've seen I had the plastic spoon fork, but I keep this as a backup just to keep it with me in case I forget something. So the next item is the compass, okay? This one, looks like it's see-through, but it actually will illuminate, and so you can use like a flashlight, and you can hold it to this, and then it will glow in the dark. And so this was a gift from my younger son, Tonatiuh, and it's been really great. I don't use it every time I'm out, but when I do need a compass, this thing's spectacular, okay? One thing you don't see here, and it's charging, is a headlamp, and I talked about having a flashlight or a headlamp, but a headlamp is really essential on any hike. You'll see some binoculars here. These are just a basic pair of binoculars off of Amazon. You may or may not prefer to have binoculars with you, but depending where you're at, it might be nice to see the scenery or some of the sights. I carry this little solar powered battery pack, and this is a bottle opener. Not that you're going to need that on the hike, but it actually is a phone charging cable for my iPhone. And so this has been wonderful for me because I can hang this off of one of the loops on the back of the pack while I'm hiking, and I'm able to charge my phone in the evening. And so I just let it hang from the pack, and been a wonderful thing to have on a hike. The other thing is a bandana, okay? And you know, whichever kind of bandana you prefer to have, I try to get something that is like a stay dry bandana, mostly because the stay dry type of bandana, you know, you're going to be sweating when you're hiking, and it's real helpful to have something that's going to dry quickly. I also keep the compass accessible here. I'll put in the side pouch here some of the other items. There, there, the hammer, and the fuel attachment. So how you pack your pack is really up to you, but no matter how you pack it, I think most hikers will tell you that every day your pack orientation is probably going to change, just because you have less food the next day. You might have started with your pack one way, but then the next day you change clothes, you're consuming food as you go, and just by the nature of things, you're probably going to pack your pack a little bit differently, slightly differently each day. So I'll pack this back up here. Hopefully this was helpful, and get out there and start hiking.